Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I go on the internet and I search and I look at social media and I buy something on Amazon, let's say, my actions, my behavior is recorded. We call it data. Who owns it?
I have a white paper I'm going to send to you. We've spent a lot of time thinking about this issue. So the issue of data ownership is quite difficult to parse, but let me give you my best shot, and
Yes, ma'am.
let's have a discussion.
So I'd like to have a discussion, but first I'd like to have an answer.
Here's the answer. I view data as, in our current data ecosystems, as a common pool resource. I think a lot of different entities can lay claim to that data. However, no one gets to own it. And, well, in some cases they
You don't think
can.
that I own my data?
It depends on where you've used it and where it is. I think there are
Doctor,
some.
how about you?
Yeah.
I don't think there is an answer to who owns your data. Once you've taken an action, especially in some ways it interacted with another company.
Well, let's suppose that Congress passed a law that said the consumer owns his data and he or she can knowingly license it. What would be wrong with that?
I don't think there'd be anything wrong with it. I think it would have impact on who could then collect your data, or whether data could be collected.
No, I could license
Sure, and
my data knowingly.
right.
Now, what in terms of knowingly licensing my data that I own, what sort of disclosures should a social media company, for example, make to me in terms of how it's going to use my data? Right now, they make disclosures, but they don't inform the consumer. I've said before, some of those things are 7, 8, 9, 10 pages written by lawyers. You could hide a dead body in them and nobody would find the body. I mean, nobody reads them. That's
correct.
not knowing consent. What would a social media company have to tell me in order for me to know what they're doing?
You want to go ahead?
May I offer an example from the medical field? So under HIPAA, there are very meaningful mechanisms prior to a consumer agreeing to release their information outside of the protection of HIPAA. However, one of the concerns that's come up with this is that it's become very, very easy for consumers, patients, to quote unquote donate their data. And what's happened is that people have donated their data and taken it out of the protections of HIPAA
Ms. Dixon,
without
I'm not
meaningful
I'm
consent.
not trying to be rude. I'm trying to get answers. Here's my question. If I own my data and I license it, I need to understand what licensing it means. What needs to be disclosed to me?
My understanding, looking at other fields, because this is not something I have studied at length,
Okay,
my
that's
understanding is that that is a serious agreement, and it would require massive disclosures. I think you could almost put a graveyard in that disclosure, compared to
And you don't think it's possible to write a disclosure that the consumer would understand? Is that what you're saying?
In this area, I'd have to really look at that. Again, this is not an area of research for me, but
What do you think, Doc?
yeah.
I think it would be very complicated. So it is not an area that we've looked at either. But just if Congress were to pass a law that allowed consumers to license their own data, that would just create a large amount of
So
regulation to
So
go
you
along
both
with that.
think that we should just allow companies to do what they want with our data, that this problem is impossible to solve?
No, I don't think I meant that at all. I just meant that it would have to be worked through. It's not an easy fix.
No,
It's
I don't think there are
a-
any easy fixes around here.
And I don't mean that either. I believe that we should have rules of the road, and we should have agreed upon rules on what's
I
done.
agree with that, too. And everybody, I mean, we've had a lot of interesting discussions about this, but no offense to you two, but the experts never offer a solution. So, to me, the solution is consumer owns his data. You can license it. Licensing has to be knowing and intentional. You can move your data. Portability should be an option. I can change my mind about licensing it. And companies will adapt to that. They'll have no choice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.